I remember very vividly how it was that I got the opportunity to represent the area in the legislature. I'd been involved in campaigns. I always knew that I wanted to someday run for office. And so in 1978, then State Senator Robert Wadley, Bob Wadley, who had Wadley Shoes years and years ago in Claremore, announced that he was going to retire, and the state representative at the time was going to run for the state senate. I was 22 years old. I was a senior in college. I was working at the grocery store, and I was doing student teaching at Claremore High School under Colonel Carl Shack, who was a teacher in government and history. I wasn't smart enough to realize that you're not supposed to get elected when you're 22, and that's one of the beauties of youth, if you will, is that you can do things that you otherwise wouldn't think you could. People would joke and say, how's he going to fund his campaign with pop bottle deposits? But what they didn't realize was that if you worked at a grocery store in then what was a fairly small town, Claremore was much smaller, everybody, rich, poor, young, old, whatever their background, came through that line at the grocery store. And so you got an opportunity to know people. And so when I would go knock doors as a candidate, often people would already know me. And as the joke went, as long as I didn't smash the bread or break the eggs, they would give me a chance with their vote. But it was a situation where, with the help of a lot of people and a lot of hard work and knocking a lot of doors, I did have the opportunity then to, at age 22, get elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives. The story from there gets another interesting turn. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer, and I'd always told, because I like to argue, that I should be a lawyer. And so I made a promise to my father, who had wanted to become a lawyer but grew up in the Depression and couldn't, that even though I'd gotten elected to the House, I would still go ahead and go to law school. And so I did. I went to law school at night, first at the University of Tulsa, and then I went 30 hours at Oklahoma City University in the middle of what you would call the law school time period. And then the final time still at the University of Tulsa, and I graduated from there at TU. TU and both OCU were very helpful to me in terms of working out scheduling. One semester I went to both schools at the same time, and the old joke was I always brought the OCU book to TU and the TU book to OCU. But I somehow bluffed my way through. And then the other interesting thing is that because I didn't have much of a car, the legislature paid $9,000 in those days, which had been still an increase for me, but wasn't very much, that I would ride back when I was going to TU at night from the legislature in Oklahoma City. I would ride with a lawmaker, House member, who came back to Sapulpa every night. He would actually take me to the turnpike gate. I would then get up in a beat-up old van that someone had loaned to me, drive it to TU, go to law school that night, come back to the turnpike, and this company called Turnpike Transit, and I'll be forever grateful to them, would allow me to ride with their drivers back across the turnpike to get back to my quote-unquote good car to then go back to the legislature the next morning. Those were long days, but when you're young, you can do that. The most interesting thing, though, is that if I didn't make it back to the turnpike by the time their drivers came through, if they were ahead of schedule or whatever, I'd have to hitchhike back to Oklahoma City. And I had to do that 2 or 3 times. And there's nothing more, I don't know if it's interesting or humbling, than to be a member of the House of Representatives, to be out on a cold night with your thumb out and a group of people go by and look at you as they go by, and the next day say, there was a guy that looked just like you last night at the turnpike. And I had to then get in with somebody who'd been drinking too much and was weaving all over the road as we made it back to Oklahoma City.